Good morning to everybody, and I'm very honored to be the speaker here, and I thank you so much for the invitation, to giving me the chance to let you a bit know about my experience and share a bit, let's say, differences between Asian and European facility designs. How can I go back? First, quick to my person. My name is Bachofen. I'm a Swiss citizen, which is located in Singapore, so I'm living in Singapore. I have in Switzerland a consulting company, and I do have, together with Austar, a joint venture for the Asian market for design of biopharmaceutical and highly active drugs facilities. I'm born in 1965, and I have around 25 years of experience in designing and executing pharmaceutical and biopharmaceutical facilities. Thank you so much. I need to go a bit closer to the screen. So we have 30 pages to go, and it's not everything clear in my mind, so I need to have a support. So my presentation is made in three chapters. One is requirements, authorities, so means input to the work. Second chapter is regarding case studies for biologicals, biosafety, and one case study is for highly active drugs, sterile liquid. And the last chapter is a bit explanation. What is the mindset in Europe? What is the mindset in Asia? To give you a bit of idea how we think and how we do it different compared to our Asian colleagues. So, prior to the start of a conceptual design, we need to precisely understand what are the basic user requirements of our clients. We need to understand what kind of microorganism you cultivate. We need to understand if you have genetic modified host cells, microorganisms. How you like to multiply them. Is it on a cell factory base? Is it on a bioreactor base? And if you have highly active drugs, we need to understand what is the classification for an API and what is the OEL level, to get a feeling, to understand later the containment concept we have to fulfill. Then capacities. It's clear, we need to understand what is the recipe, what is the formulation process, what are the numbers of doses, what is the batch period, what is the batch size, what is the form, sterile, lyophilized, etc. And then for sure other requirements. What are the target market? Is it a local one? Do we have to focus on WHO, on NRA, or do we have to also focus on FDA US or EU GMP to understand what is the minimum requirement for our facility design? Facility integration means close collaboration, close discussion with the client, because the target is to minimize numbers of rooms, to minimize sizing of the facility, because at the end we are not only talking about investment, we are also talking about so-called operational cost. So that's already a little difference between European mindset and Asian mindset. Our focus is on so-called life cycle cost. We look on a period of 10 years or 15 years, and in Asia, what I see is that mainly the investment portion is the decision driver. But we need to understand that a facility shall be as small as possible. Energy, environment, biological monitoring, each square meter we can save, we have to save. Then isolation, segregation, very important when we deal with biosafety level, for example, genetic modified organisms or vaccines. We need to have a segregation concept for bio-positive, bio-negative. We need to have a containment concept for highly active drugs to avoid harming our employees and to minimize the area which is contaminated, to minimize the cleaning effort. And we are talking about airlocks, that's clean, clear, segregation between non-GMP and GMP. We are talking about clean utilities and HVAC. Also here, the guidelines define clearly a segregation between active areas and bio-negative areas. And in the future, even in Asia, we will talk more about containment, like isolation technology for GMP reason, but mainly also for containment reason, to avoid harming our stuff. When we have OSDs, for example, for tableting or capsuling, that we build on top an isolator rather than a containment of the room, just to minimize the area which needs to be cleaned and decontaminated prior to product change. So these are the first things we think based on the input from our clients and the manufacturer. Biosafety, this is for vaccines, relevant. We are there strongly driven by WHO requirements, and it's rather clear what we have to do. But nevertheless, not every country is classifying each virus or bacterial strain on the same biosafety level or put him on the same risk group. So we have to find out where are the markets again, what are the where are the strains coming from, and how the strains are classified in regards to the risk group. By the way, I can make then at the end a PDF, and you can submit, if you wish, the PDF to the audience. So no problem at all, this is for free. Highly active ingredients, this is related to active pharmaceutical ingredients. So we are talking about the API, chemical based and not biological based. Normally they are separated in 4 to 5 different levels. We call these categories 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Some companies they work with 1, 2, 3A, 3B and 4. It depends a bit on the company philosophy. 5 is the highest level of containment. we go there only for isolation technology and cleaning in place and washing in place. And level 1 is the lowest level, which doesn't need special precautions to fulfill. Based on product, based on classification of the product, based on sizing of the batch, we have first manufacturing process we develop together with the client. We define, based on the containment concept, the room grade we need to have, and then we say which area needs to have a segregation for HVAC, which area can be recirculated or not. For example, when we have a biosafety level 3, not all of the NRAs allow us to recirculate. When we have a category 5 with a lot of dust, we most probably have a pass-through ventilation system needs to be defined. We have to understand, based on the volumes, what is the waste, what kind of waste we produce. We have solid waste, liquid waste. We have to treat the waste. So when we are talking about biologics, we can treat the waste locally with heat. When we are talking about APIs, we don't have the chance to treat it in our facility, so we have to sell or we have to give the waste outside to treat. Room decontamination, biologic, there are good ways to do it. One way is fumigation with formalin, one way is fumigation with VHP. And for highly active drugs, we have to clean it based on a so-called cleaning validation procedures, because prior to product change, we have to assure that we have a reduction of the remaining API from the product before. Ventilation system. The segregation is normally made with so-called recirculation system. So what we have to do is to avoid that we recirculate from a bio-positive area into a bio-negative area, just to make sure that we don't migrate microorganisms from a risk area into a non-risk area. So we normally have centralized makeup and exhaust air handling system, which we dehumidify and cool and humidify, and then per area a recirculation system which is cooling down, so which is cooling the internal heat gain down from the equipment, from the light and from the operator. So that's a classical system to segregate rooms. Can also be used for isolator, because each isolator has its own dedicated ventilation system. That's the basic. Based on these basics, we try to define rooms, and we try to adjust the rooms in a logic manner. All guidelines define that we shall have a logical, personal and material flow. And logic means if there is a chance of cross-contamination, unidirectional ideally, just to avoid mixing waste with raw materials, and to avoid that people which have contaminated garments contaminate new stuff which enter the facility. The facility I show you is a biosafety level 2 enhanced, so it's IPV, polio vaccine, and what you try to do in this facility, you try to make a very logic flow to avoid any contamination between non-biosafety area and biosafety area. We start with bio-negative, so for this virus cultivation we need cells where we can connect the virus to. So this is so-called bio-negative. This is a pure cell cultivation. It's C-grade area because we cannot avoid open manufacturing steps. The next area is the virus cultivation. So the big room on the right is the upstream process area where we cultivate the virus on the cells. The room in the middle is the downstream process room, which is open again. So we have chromatography steps, cannot be closed, so it's C-grade again. And the last room is to take the samples, to inactivate and take again samples. And then the next room, the light blue one, is the quarantine, where we store our product until we know that the inactivation was successful. So we try to avoid bringing material out of our containment before we know if the inactivation process has been successful or not. For cell culture, then we pump the cells into our virus culture, upstream, segregated area, downstream, segregated area, inactivation, segregated area, and quarantine, again, a segregated area. On the left and on the right side of the cell culture, we allocated our media preparation on the right side because we need a lot of media for cell culture and for virus culture, so it's close, little, so short piping. And on the left side, again in the bionegative area, we have our buffer preparation and buffer distribution to the two downstream rooms, again very close, short distances and easy. The green one is, we call it support area. So we have kind of a roundabout. Reusable material is leaving the manufacturing area via a return corridor, is then inactivated in a steam sterilizer, and then after inactivation the tools and the goods and the parts go back to the washing, final rinse, sealing, autoclaving, so sterilizing, and top right, the green room, is our clean storage, and go then back into our process area. So it shall be a circle between dirty and clean. The lower part, the green part, the long one, is the QC. It's always advisable while we have biosafety products to have the QC tests for biomaterial inside our workshop, but it must be a separate workshop. But we like to avoid to bring the samples out to another building to have potential contamination of the environment. Green is the product flow. It's coming in and leaving the facility after inactivation. And this means everything is unidirectional to avoid any cross flow. People, they enter the facility from CNC into D-grade, from D-grade bio-negative, they go via an airlock into the process rooms, and after manufacturing they leave the process room into the return corridor, and then they leave the facility from bio-positive into bio-negative area. So also here, unidirectional personal flow to avoid any cross-contamination. That's the room pressure. Room pressure shall be made in a way that we never blow from a bio-positive area and a bio-negative area, but nevertheless, GMP requires overpressure in GMP rooms, but lower pressure in the surrounding. This means we have to install some so-called buffer airlocks, which have a bubble function, so they act as a bubble to avoid any contamination between bio-positive, bio-negative. Then, for bio-facilities, we use quite frequent vaporized hydrogen peroxide airlocks to bring goods in from CNC to B grade, but especially to bring final products out from a bio-positive area to a bio-negative area to inactivate the outer surface, and this is nowadays proven technology, and it's very useful when you talk to WHO or other NRA auditors. Utilities, what we do is we have normally a generation centralized. We have a main loop for bio-negative area and a sub-loop for all consumers where we have point of use in the bio-positive areas. And then we have, with the tank of the sub-loop, we have a complete segregation of the different systems. And since the water is circulating, so we can bring back some microorganisms into the tank, and with a sub-loop and a segregation by tank, we are safe to not contaminate our bio-negative area. When we look at the air conditioning system for this facility, so we have one system for CNC area, bio-negative. We have one system for C-grade area, for media, for buffer, for cell, because that's all bio-negative, no contamination risk. We have one ventilation system for the return corridor, because the return corridor is our waste handling, and we don't like to recirculate air from the waste handling into our manufacturing rooms. We have one for downstream, one for upstream, one for bio-positive technical area, and one for QC. QC, according to the guidelines, shall be dedicated facility. Facility doesn't mean building. Facility means separate water, separate HVAC, separate airlocks, and separate, let's say, a little workshop. This was the case study 1 for a bio-positive vaccine facility, and this case study is a classical European concept. It's a highly active OEL4 sterile liquid filling line very small, it's around 400-500 square meter, formulation, filling, capping, washing and secondary packaging. So we have a complete closed formulation system. We bring our excipients, the APIs, in so-called alpha-beta port containers in stainless steel to our formulation. We dock them to the formulation vessel. We have these double butterfly valves, alpha-beta, and then we integrate the excipients into the vessel. We have a spray ball in the vessel so that we can flush the leftovers from the powder vessel into our formulation. And then it's fixed installed piping directly to the filling line, including zip. So completely closed. Filling line is a isolation technology. It's in a C-grade area here, just to make it more simple. Minimum we have to fulfill D-grade, but we have chosen here a C-grade because each grade change needs airlocks, and therefore we decided to go for C-grade in this case. C-grade surrounding, A-grade in the isolator, and after filling, outside washing machine to decontaminate the outside of the vial, and then we leave the bio-positive or the OEL area via a small pass box into the non-OEL area after closing of the vials. The red part is after closing, CNC, terminal sterilization and inspection, labeling and packaging. This facility has a stopper processor, means we receive pre-washed stoppers, we can wash them with WFI, we can sterilize them, we put them into a alpha-beta port stainless steel vessel and dock them to the filling line, automated, no open handling, everything is closed, everything is aseptic. And the dispensing of the API is inside a small isolator, so we can easily have there the containment fulfilled. Airlocks, since we are working closed, we believe we can work normally, except we have a disaster, so our containment is broken. So normally we have bidirectional personal flow, and in case of disaster we go out via a shower to decontaminate the operator. That's pressure cascade like before, overpressure in the airlocks, lower pressure in the manufacturing room. Then in the last chapter, I like to give you some ideas between difference in European and Asian mindset. So it starts with the personal airlock. In Asia we have per grade one room. So when we go from CNC to C, we have 2 rooms. In Europe we have 1 room. We don't have this wall, but we have a step over bench. And we have in the same room 2 grades. Before the step over bench we have D grade. After the step over bench we have C grade. The ISO classification is for both sides according to C grade, but the microbiome is the first half D grade, the second half C grade. So we minimize numbers of rooms. That's a big difference. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's the airflow pattern through the... Thank you. Same is for material airlock. Normally in Asia we have this buffer room, and in Europe we have no buffer room, so we give the goods directly from CNC to C. And one of the biggest differences is isolator. We are working mainly with isolators rather than wraps, and you can see in the next page is why. Let's say facility, this filling, sterile liquid filling, we need around 10 rooms, 3 different room grades, and a lot of space. And when we compare this with a European one, we have 1 room, C grade, and everything is in the same room. We think segregation by equipment, we don't think segregation by rooms. And we have a segregation for the tunnel, we have a segregation for the filling, and we have a segregation for the capping. And this means half of the space, half of the room, and this means also half of the operation costs and the life cycle cost for the next 10 years. Yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for the audience, and so please feel free to contact me during the break. Thank you very much.